My system is trying to get me to update the browser that I'm using to actually run the software to make this publication possible. But I'm not going to do it right now because I know software, and things that should go smoothly don't always go smoothly. So it's called bit of wisdom, bit of learning. Anyway, here is the reading for today. And I'll give you my thoughts on it afterwards because I do have some thoughts on it. It's called Discover the Depths. And if my system will allow me, I'll carry on. First quote is from a well-known New Thought, Science of Mind person, Michael Bernard Beckwith. And he says, our work in spiritual growth is subtractive. There's nothing we need to add. We simply remove everything that stands in the way of our authentic expression. And as we go through the reading, you'll see why Michael Gott, Reverend Michael Gott, chose that particular quote, because it fits right in. And Ernest Holmes says, as deep cries unto deep, so my thought cries unto thee, and thou dost answer. So let's see how that fits in. Michael Gott says, human beings are social creatures. True. As children, it's normal, necessary even, for us to be socialized into the norms of the culture in which we live. We'll see where that takes us. And there are many healthy ways this shows up in our lives. True. We learn to treat others respectfully and to take care of our bodies. We have the benefit of the wisdom of previous generations that gets transmitted to us. Yep, usually through our parents, our elders, our teachers, ministers, priests, and so on. He says, and we also receive what early New Thought teachers called human race consciousness. Ernest Holmes called that the race mind, by the way. The status quo, the group think that came before us. This consciousness may have been useful in earlier times, but now it is largely unexamined. Maybe. At some point in life, many of us began a journey of personal healing and transformation. Then he talks about his own. He says, for me, this began with recovery and science of mind in my 20s. Yeah, this is the same pattern as my leader, Reverend Jesse, actually. He says, I had tried to make my life fit into the acceptable molds my family and religion offered, and it left me broken and adrift. I began the difficult and empowering process of releasing old, limiting beliefs and embracing the truth I found in the spiritual path that called out to me. I learned a lot, and I unlearned even more, hence the quote from Michael Beckwith. And the learning and unlearning continue more than 30 years later. I still have false beliefs in my unconscious mind. They show up in unwanted patterns of behavior in relationships and the ways in which I treat my body. It hurts, but today I resist the process of releasing them less. I know on the other side of the work is the freedom that my soul yearns for. And this is something we've talked about before quite often, about our own stuff in here and the race mind is what Ernest Holmes called the group human subconscious mind, which, as I've said before, was actually brought to light. I don't know if he's the first one who thought it, but brought to light by the great philosopher Carl Jung. So I do know this, through studying in lots of different directions, that the problem with a lot of this is that when we come to realize what we've been doing and how we've been driven by our subconscious thoughts, that oftentimes that swings over into guilt and shame. And that's the last thing it should do. Why? Because most of the stuff that's in here, and pretty well all of the stuff that's in the race mind, have got nothing to do with us, in the sense that we didn't choose it. We didn't choose to be indoctrinated in one particular faith or another. In my own case, I grew up Catholic. And while there are some things I didn't like about the Catholic expression of Christianity in particular and spirituality in general, there's lots and lots of stuff that I did like, and I still do like, actually. So I'm not one of these people who has really suffered greatly because of growing up Catholic. Did I get beaten by priests and nuns? Yeah, literally sometimes. But I can understand that they were just doing what they thought was best for me. In most cases, maybe some of them were not, but I would say 90% of the time, they were just doing what they thought was the best thing to do to bring us up and to teach us to be good people, because why? They've been indoctrinated that way as well. So some of it I leave behind. A lot of it I don't. I mean, the mystics, for instance, I love the mystics, whether it's Rumi, who was a Muslim, or it's Teresa of Avila, or especially Julian of Norwich, who were Catholics. And at that time, it wasn't really so much Catholics. They were the church, right? Back in Julian of Norwich's time, there was the church, and then there was the eastern parts of the church, but they weren't too different, really. So there's a lot of good stuff there, but there's a lot of stuff in there that just doesn't belong, like all the guilt that my mother put on me. Why? Because it had been put on her, and she didn't choose out of spite to make me feel guilty. She'd been brought up that way. So the stuff goes back generations, and how many generations, I don't know. But the point I'm making is this. Do we have stuff to get rid of? Yes. Are there healthy ways of getting rid of it? Yes. Should we feel guilty about stuff that other people put in our subconscious minds that caused us to behave in a certain way? Absolutely not. Should we forgive those people for doing it? Absolutely. And am I preaching? Probably. But the bottom line I'm making is this. Yes, we need to work on getting rid of a lot of stuff, and there are lots and lots of different ways of doing it. And one way is our spiritual practice. The other way is having counselors that we can talk to, or I can talk to practitioners and other ministers. And if I really needed to, and I don't think I do, see a therapist. So there's lots of ways of getting rid of it. But the point is, let's decide to get rid of it, and let's get rid of all the guilt and the shame that might have gone with it. Because once we make that decision to move in a different direction, we've done it. We've chosen a new path, and we don't need to keep looking back at the old path that we've left behind. So, hey, that's my take on all this. And the affirmation: I release every limiting thought and belief that keeps me from receiving my good and from expressing the good within me. Which goes back to what Michael Beckwith was saying, where he said, our work in spiritual growth is subtractive. Yeah, it is. He says there's nothing we need to add. Well, it depends how you view that. I think there is stuff that we can add because we can look for good stuff. But I agree with him that the bulk of it is letting go of stuff we need to unlearn. So, hey, that's my message for today, and treat it as you will. But whatever you do, whatever you've done in the past, release the guilt, release the shame, and move off in a new direction. And if you need to make amends, make amends. But there you are. So my prayer and my knowingness for everyone is that you're easily able to release what no longer serves you and move ahead to what does serve you. And I claim that this is the truth for each and every one of us. And I release this word with gratitude into a divine law, the divine mind, the mind of God that always says yes, and so it is. So look out for me tomorrow, about 5-ish. Look out for Lisa tomorrow at 9:15. Look out for my colleague practitioner Danielle Johnson sometime during the day tomorrow with our midweek meditation, and we will see you next time. Namaste.